Welcome back to our latest deep dive, the space where we grab a whole load of juicy info and we'll squeeze it down so you get the really essential stuff, the bits that make you think.
Mm-hmm.
Today, we're plunging into the fascinating and sometimes, let's be honest, baffling world of the child's brain.
And we're doing this thanks to the work of Dr. Daniel J. Siegel and Tina Payne Bryson, specifically their book, The Whole Brain Child.
Right. Which is, it's way more than just a parenting guide, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's like a window into the amazing architecture being built inside our kids' heads. Our mission today is really to unpack those key neuroscience ideas they offer.
Yeah.
And importantly, get a handle on why kids behave the way they do. Yeah.
Exactly. Because who hasn't seen that? You're
Yeah.
out somewhere, maybe the supermarket,
Yep.
and there's a child having a full-on meltdown, and you just think, what on earth is going on in there? What wire just snapped? Right. So we want to understand that developing black box a bit better and see what the practical takeaways are for, well, anyone who hangs out with kids.
And we'll try to do it seriously, looking at the science, but, in a way that we can all actually understand.
Okay, let's start with a core idea from Siegel and Bryson.
Hmm.
This distinction they make between a lower brain and an upper brain.
Yeah, and it's important to say they're not like two totally separate things, but more like sets of functions in different areas.
Okay.
So the lower brain, this includes the brainstem and the limbic system. It's the more primitive part. It's responsible for our instincts, fight or flight, basic survival stuff, and those core emotions, fear, anger. And the key thing is, in young children, this part is often running the show.
Right. The classic toddler tantrum. Okay, that makes more sense now. It's like they have this super sensitive emotional alarm system that just goes off at the slightest thing.
Pretty much. And then you've got the upper brain. This is the more evolved bit, the neocortex, especially that prefrontal cortex right at the front.
Okay, the thinking cap part.
Kind of. This is where decision-making happens, empathy, the ability to regulate our emotions, planning ahead. It's the control center for our more reflective, thoughtful behavior.
So if the lower brain is the engine, maybe the accelerator, the upper brain is like the driver who's still maybe getting their license, still learning the steering and brakes.
That's a great analogy. Exactly. And here's the crucial part. This upper brain develops really gradually. It keeps maturing well into adulthood, actually.
Wow, okay.
Which is why kids just don't have the same capacity as adults to control impulses or, really see things from someone else's perspective. So the vital thing to grasp is that for healthy mental functioning, these two parts, the instinctive bit and the rational bit, they need to be well connected. They need to work together.
Like an orchestra.
Yeah, like an orchestra. You need the powerful instruments, the raw emotion, but you also need a good conductor, the upper brain, to make the music harmonious, right?
I like that. Makes sense. And that brings us to another key distinction they make, doesn't it? The left brain versus the right brain. They call it horizontal integration. Tell us about that.
Right. So brain lateralization. Basically, the idea is that the right hemisphere, the right side of the brain, is more focused on emotions, nonverbal experiences, that gut feeling or intuition we sometimes get, and also what's called implicit memory. Those are the unconscious feeling-based memories, like a sense of safety, that aren't necessarily tied to a specific story.
Okay, so feelings, big picture stuff.
Yeah. And the left hemisphere, on the other hand, is more about logic, language, order. It loves making sense of things, creating coherent explanations, narratives, stories.
So if young kids operate mainly from the right hemisphere, does that explain why it's sometimes so hard for them to actually tell you what's wrong?
Bingo.
They're feeling the emotions so intensely, right brain style, but they just don't have the left brain language tools yet to translate it. It's like trying to describe a brand new color.
Precisely that. They're flooded with the feeling, but the words aren't there. And integrating these two hemispheres is fundamental for self-regulation.
How so?
Well, when a child can connect that big emotion they're feeling, that's the right brain, with a logical explanation or a story about it, that's the left brain, they start to understand it and, crucially, manage it better.
So it's like naming the feeling helps tame it.
Exactly. Naming it makes it less overwhelming, more concrete.
Okay, so we're getting the basic structure, lower and upper, left and right. But the brain isn't fixed, is it? That's where neuroplasticity comes in.
That's right. Neuroplasticity is this incredible ability the brain has to change, to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections. It happens throughout life, but it's especially powerful during childhood.
So experience has actually changed the brain's wiring.
Literally. Every single interaction, every experience a child has, especially with their caregivers, is physically sculpting their brain. It strengthens the neural pathways that get used often and weakens the ones that don't.
Wow.
So for instance, a child in a safe, loving environment, they'll develop stronger connections in areas linked to calmness and trust. The key is realizing that every interaction counts, Every moment of connection shapes that brain architecture.
And the flip side. If the environment is constantly stressful or frightening, does that leave a lasting negative mark?
Unfortunately, yes. Things like traumatic experiences or what's called toxic stress, like ongoing neglect or abuse, can actually hyperactivate the amygdala, that fear center we mentioned.
Oh, wow.
And that makes it much harder for the child to develop good emotional regulation skills. It's like their internal alarm system gets stuck in the on position.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. But the good news is that a safe, enriching environment can foster what's called neurobiological resilience. It helps the brain recover and develop healthier coping mechanisms.
And there are specific times, this is even more important, right? These critical windows.
Yes, absolutely. The early years are crucial for laying down those socio-emotional foundations. And then adolescence is another huge period of brain reorganization. Massive changes happening, especially in that prefrontal cortex.
Okay, this is all fascinating theory, but the question everyone's probably asking is, how do we actually use this day-to-day with kids? Siegel and Bryson offer practical strategies based on this brain integration idea. One is connect and redirect. Can you break that down?
Yeah, this one's super useful. It's designed for those moments when a child is totally swamped by their lower brain, mid-tantrum, completely losing it.
Give me there.
Right. So step one is connect. Connect on an emotional level first. That means validating their feelings, showing empathy, even if you don't agree with the behavior itself. Wow, you're really upset right now.
So you engage their right brain first, the feeling side.
Exactly. You connect with the emotion. Only once the child feels heard and understood are you in a better position to then redirect. That's when you bring in the left brain, using logic, reasoning, maybe problem solving together. Okay, you're mad we have to leave the park. What could we do when we get home that would be fun?
And this actually changes things in the brain.
Well, what's really interesting is that neuroimaging studies show this kind of emotional validation actually helps calm activity in those limbic areas, the emotional hotspots. It literally soothes the lower brain and strengthens the connection to the prefrontal cortex. It's not just about calming them down now, it's building those pathways for regulation long term.
That's powerful. Okay, another strategy I love the sound of is name it to tame it. Great name. How does that work?
It's simple but incredibly effective. It's basically helping the child put words to what they're feeling.
Like we touched on earlier.
Exactly. Saying something like, I see you're feeling really angry because your tower fell down, activates their left hemisphere, the language part, and that helps integrate the raw emotional experience happening in the right hemisphere. Research in clinical psychology actually backs this up. They call it effect labeling, and it shows that just naming the emotion can reduce its intensity.
It's like shining a light on the scary monster under the bed. Once you name it, it's less terrifying.
That's a perfect way to put it. It makes it less amorphous, less overwhelming.
Makes sense. And then there's one we sometimes forget, maybe especially as adults, but it's so crucial. Move it or lose it. Or maybe move the body to change the mind.
Yes. Physical activity, whether it's running around, jumping, dancing, or even just taking some deep breaths, it has a direct impact on our autonomic nervous system.
How does that work?
It helps regulate it, basically shifting the body out of that stress response and towards calm. There's research linking this to things like heart coherence and how movement impacts the vagus nerve, which plays a huge role in relaxation.
So sometimes the best way to calm a frantic mind is just get the body moving.
Absolutely. Who hasn't felt better after stomping around a bit when they're mad? Or going for a run. It works for kids too. Maybe less stomping, more jumping jacks.
Okay, let's talk about memory now and the power of stories. The authors differentiate between implicit and explicit memory. What's the key difference, and why does it matter for kids?
Okay, so implicit memory is that non-conscious kind of memory. It's often tied to emotions and bodily sensations, like the feeling of safety you get around a loved one, or maybe a sudden unease triggered by a smell, even if you don't know why. It's stored deep down.
Right, it's not like a specific event you recall.
Exactly. Explicit memory, on the other hand, is conscious memory. It's recalling facts, events, names, being able to construct a narrative or story about something that happened. This relies heavily on a brain structure called the hippocampus, which really only matures significantly around age 3 or 4. That's why most of us don't have memories from when we were babies.
Okay, so how does this relate to helping kids?
Well, Siegel puts forward this really powerful idea. Parents can help children integrate difficult, maybe even traumatic, implicit memories by turning them into explicit ones.
How? By talking about them?
Yes, by co-constructing a narrative. By helping the child tell the story of what happened, giving it a beginning, a middle, and an end, talking about the feelings involved, you help connect the emotional memory linked to the amygdala with the narrative memory linked to the hippocampus.
And that integration helps.
It can significantly reduce the negative emotional charge of the experience. It helps make sense of it, puts it into context, rather than it just being this free-floating, scary, implicit feeling.
That really highlights the importance of relationships, doesn't it? This whole idea of the social brain. How does secure attachment fit into this brain development picture?
It's absolutely fundamental. Going back to Bowlby's attachment theory, we now know that having secure, responsive relationships in early life actually stimulates the growth of myelinated fibers like insulation for nerve pathways, particularly in areas like the anterior cingulate cortex.
And that area is important.
Emotional regulation. So a secure attachment literally builds the brain architecture needed for kids to manage their feelings later on.
Wow. So the caregiver is almost like an external regulator.
Exactly. In the early years, the caregiver acts as a sort of external brain, helping the child regulate their emotions, modeling coping skills, soothing them, skills the child gradually internalizes as their own brain develops.
And that emotional connection itself matters too, right? That attunement.
Hugely. That emotional attunement, or what some call limbic resonance, that feeling of being in sync emotionally with your child, it actually promotes the release of oxytocin.
Ah, the bonding hormone.
The bonding hormone. It strengthens the attachment, makes the child feel safe, and it also reduces levels of cortisol, the stress hormone. So that attuned connection is actively shaping the child's neurochemistry in a positive way. It's like the caregiver is an emotional mirror, helping the child understand and navigate their own inner world.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground, really fascinating stuff. But I imagine, like any popularization of complex science, there might be some nuances or academic critiques of this model.
Oh, sure, that's fair. Some experts in neuroscience might point out that dividing the brain into just upper and lower or strictly left and right functions, while really helpful for explaining it simply.
Yeah.
It is a simplification. The brain is incredibly complex, a vast network. Things are much more interconnected and distributed than those simple labels might suggest.
So it's not quite that neat in reality.
Not quite. It's a useful metaphor, but the brain works in a much more integrated way. Also, while the strategies like connect and redirect are intuitive and based on sound neuroscientific principles, some might argue we need more rigorous long-term studies to definitively prove their specific effectiveness over time.
Okay, that's important context.
Definitely. But that said, the core message of the book, the immense importance of neural integration, how different brain parts need to work together, and the profound impact of early experiences and relationships that's increasingly supported by research in fields like connectomics, which maps brain connections, and developmental neuroscience generally.
So wrapping up the whole brain child gives us this really valuable lens, doesn't it? A way to understand how those early experiences in our relationships literally shape that incredibly plastic organ, the child's brain.
Absolutely. Understanding these concepts, plasticity, integration, attachment, it gives us really useful tools, practical ways to foster resilience, empathy, and better cognitive skills in kids.
It moves beyond just managing behavior to actually understanding the developing brain behind it.
Precisely. And maybe more than just specific techniques, the book really invites us to reflect on the deep influence our everyday interactions have. How we respond in those tough moments is actually helping build their brain, shaping their future well-being.
That's a really powerful thought to end on. So we'll leave you with that today. We encourage you to think about how these ideas on brain development might shift your own perspective on children's behavior and maybe your interactions with the young people in your life. What are the long-term ripples of those early experiences shaping that growing brain? It's a fascinating question to keep exploring. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time.